I'm just,
upsets me that
I'm on Moana right now. I think of them just again leaving up into
Like this
It's like I'm already naturally doing this.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Three Fates podcast. We're back. Ladies,
Welcome, welcome.
how are you guys doing today?
Pretty excited.
I
Yeah,
know
I feel
it's
good.
snowing.
It is snowing.
I was saying to Robin that the first time we recorded it was snowing the same time. So
Yeah.
it hasn't been snowing in Vernon forever. And then today is the day it starts to snow.
Feels like a blessing.
You guys brought it in.
I like a cozy vibe.
Yeah.
It's a cozy vibe.
So we thought today we would show everybody how we come up with our themes for our podcast episodes. And it's really just going to be about cultivating energy, tapping in. That's really how we pick what we're going to talk about. And we all just sort of go into the zone. So I'm wondering if, Meredith, you want to lead us with some breath?
Yeah. So, yeah, we just kind of intuitively channel the topic and align with the energies that would like to be known for the highest good of all, love of all. So a nice little opening is just 3 breaths. And if you're listening, you're welcome to join. Just simply in through the nose and a nice exhale. And as we're doing that, we're feeling the energy settle in our bodies. And inhale. And exhale. And then you can start to feel channels opening. And inhale. And exhale. Now we're in our seats. We'll just do a little scan, see what the topic is, see what might pop into somebody's heart or head or in the ether. You already have something, don't you?
I was going to say, we have to go to life over here.
Life, yeah.
I can't get this whole idea of what healthy relationships are and
Okay.
could look like out of my heart space.
Okay.
I've been really contemplating what is a healthy relationship and what is it what's the recipe for that and what's the consciousness behind that and how do you come into that sacred container of I'm really dissecting and contemplating the words codependency and interdependency. And I'm just tasting those differences.
And you're speaking in romantic relationships or just relationships in general right now?
Nice one.
I mean, I think that really anything.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I was for myself, I'm thinking romantic, but this can be really relationships in general. Mm-hmm. We can kind of play this topic into kind of different kind of categories like friendships and romantic relationships or collaborations or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I think all of it has the same recipe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm feeling today.
Yeah. I know interdependency was a term that I learned through some of the trauma training that I'm doing, and we were working on codependency and just these sort of relationships that can come up based upon our lived experience and unmet needs in a lot of way. And so the term, rather than hyper independent, which is a trauma response, or completely codependent, which is also kind of a trauma response. I don't want to paint everything with trauma. You can also use trauma as disconnection or a lot of times an unmet need. And then I learned about this term interdependency, and interdependency had a lot to do with healthy community and healthy relationship and realizing that we can't have everything that we need outside of relationships, that we learn so much about the meaning of life and the purpose and all of that. And we get to develop through relationships and interdependency, meaning that we don't rely on others necessarily to help our unmet needs. It's our own responsibility to do our work and to show up into connecting these parts of ourselves, but that in this interdependency that we can lean on others and actually elevate and learn what it means to have these needs met in terms of, what are some needs? There's all kinds, familial, sexual, friendship, right? All those sorts of things that it's actually really healthy to be able to lean on someone and to share and collaborate in a healthy way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you said that, last week. You kind of used that term. And of course, it's like not the first time I've heard that word, but something just like hit me like deep in my gut when you used that term and kind of explained it. And I was like, this is what I've been missing. Like this like teaching in my body, like the embodiment of what does it feel like to be in an interdependent relationship versus like in my past being in more codependent relationships and like in being seen more example of codependent relationships. And I was like, I don't really even know if I have or had like the codes for that in my body. I never really like had that example being like in my system of like a knowing inside. I was like, what is this? And so I've been really like sinking into like the frequency and the consciousness of that word and like absorbing it from like the quantum field of like, okay, if I wasn't educated on this in my life through whatever, like let's bring it in through like where it's available for me to receive like a little sponge. And I'm learning a ton. It's been fascinating and really, really rapid and rapidly changing my like view on relationships and like the potential of the healing container, all the things that people say that our relationships are good for. Like I'm talking romantic in this category. I was kind of like, yeah, sure, like good for you. Like I feel like romantic relationships for you are great, and I can see how you use it for a healing container, but I don't really see that for myself.
Can you walk us through some of like the thought patterns or beliefs that you might have held in that? Because I think there's a huge part of like things associated with like guilt, shame, like why do you want a relationship? I don't need no man, or I don't need no partner, those sort of like things. So I wonder what that was like for you, or what are some of the maybe frequencies that you held on to?
I feel like I always kind of had this like thought in my mind that I can handle my own shit. Like even as a kid, I'm like, no, I don't really want to talk about it. I can handle myself. Like I'll help you, but don't help me kind of idea. Like I got it. Like I didn't really want to, I was a little more private, I think, with my kind of own inner workings.
Not relatable at all.
No, right? And they're
Well,
like,
especially what we're taught then I think as women
Yeah.
now in that coming of this generation is like you should figure it out on your own now. Like you know, establish your own life, right? As women. Anyways, keep going.
no, totally. And I think that even in like the examples that I think a lot of us grew up with was this idea of like marriage being this kind of like the woman kind of supporting the man in his work. That I saw a lot of that kind of example, and just in society, in my own family and stuff. And I didn't really find that appealing at all. I didn't really see how the container relationship was something to like expand your consciousness and to ascend in. I just kind of felt like it was something just to create children and have 2 incomes in a home or something like that kind of stability and like share chores. But I couldn't really find the example in my own system, something grander than that. And I found the other aspect, like the work, the activations, the big deep healing work, more with my friendships. Like in those, my friendships have always been more the energy of like interconnectedness. And I found that and I always leaned into that a lot.
Because it was easier.
It was so much easier.
Yeah.
And I found it like really, and when I really think about it, it's not as intimate as a romantic partnership. You can kind of walk away or share a little bit with your romantic partner that you live with. You have to like be more exposed. So there was a safety also in just being in the friendships as like my main kind of like interdependent relationships versus romantic ones, because that was just a little too close.
Yeah.
It wasn't as safe.
I love that.
Yeah. And for whatever, like, and I think that like the safety of romantic relationships for me comes from like a multitude of things, for sure.
Like what?
Oh,
If you're going to go here, let's go here.
Let's go, Pam.
let's go here. Well, sexual trauma, right?
Okay, yeah.
Like that's
Thank
a big
you.
one.
Yeah.
And so that's like, of course, you know, the trust of the masculine when it comes to a history like that is never comfortable.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I have any, like with that still in the system, the trust wasn't there.
Yeah.
And the safety.
Yeah.
So I'm like learning now to be like, okay, what conscious men out there can show me that I can trust you again? Yeah.
And then also, how can I trust myself?
Yes.
Right? How can I build to trust myself, to be able to recognize when the energy of something is different? I know when I got into breath work, I think about 2.5 years ago, I had the most intense breath work. I was participating in a training And I had a memory of a sexual assault from childhood come up, and it destroyed me. And I remember because I didn't have a lot of conscious memories, but I had a lot of the behaviors of someone who had been through that. And it was really interesting to have it come so alive, be so real in a breath work. Nothing in my life confirmed that. No one, I didn't know who the person was, but it was shown to me in the breath work when it happened. I remember all of this in this breath work, all of these incidents lined up, and to show me how these behaviors had been this thread through my whole life of that. And it's one of the reasons why then I went into trauma training with breath work, was because I had such an intense experience in that. I was like, I want to do this. I want to be able to work through this or see this or validate this for people. And mainly for myself, really, which I think is a lot of this work is just how is for ourselves too, right? And so how do we start to journey by recognizing these parts of ourselves, right? That, because I think one of the biggest energies of that is we don't learn how to not trust ourselves.
Totally.
Right. And so then we choose people. Yeah. We choose people where we can control, especially, I don't know if this resonates with you, but caregiving, right? I love to caregive. Or if they've got a problem, then after that, I would love to fix. You've got a problem, you're hurt, you're fucked up. Come on, let's.
That's good.
The worse,
the
worse you are, the better.
Oh my god.
We should probably have sex. You're really fucked up. So yeah.
I'll fix this.
Let's go in there. Let me fix this. This is yes.
Yep, that was.
Give me your broken Statue of Liberty ain't got nothing on me. Kind of thing, right? And so then learning how to let go and be like, oh, you don't have to fix everybody. That's not where your value is. Is a whole journey into that. And so
yes, preach it.
Yeah, it's really, and it has been a journey into self, and then learning how to start to trust yourself, to trust experiences with others. And then that's for me where the elevation has been. And every time, because my standard, I think there's so many memes around where people are like, your standards are too high. That standards likes me back. Has a pulse, learning how to be okay, asking for more and saying actually, that's not good enough for me, or, and not in a negative way to somebody else, but just recognizing how you want to feel, right? Is kind of a powerful journey when I think you're working on reconnecting or working through something like sexual trauma. Yeah.
So would you guys say that that romantic relationships have been the hardest in this life to learn?
For me.
Yes.
just to summarize it a little bit.
Married, who met her
tell us about
soulmate at 21.
Yeah, I was really young actually. I was 23 or 24, maybe. No, it's just interesting listening to you guys, and I'm like, oh, I see that, I sympathize with that, I empathize with that because I see it a lot in my practice. But I'm like, yeah, and me personally, I would say my challenges have been more in friendships.
Yeah,
totally. Even though I, come from a household where I wouldn't say my parents, had the best relationship. And it was a lot of the traditional reasons why you get married and things like that. But I've easily been able to see what love is supposed to be with a partner and how love actually grows. So I'm like, no, that's been actually fairly easy. But yeah, more of my struggle, I would say, is with friendships.
Can we get into that a little bit?
Yeah.
So is it the codependent part? What's the trauma there? I mean, I know a little bit, but I want to.
Yeah, I think. I've had background of just, having some close friends and losing close friends and more in my teen years. I would say was where kind of some trauma started. But, and then after that, it is about what you had said, Meredith, and identifying the more fucked up a person is I want to have sex with that person, or I'm attracted. It'd be the same thing, but in friendships. I was like, oh, if there was somebody who was damaged or hurting, it's they would be attracted to me, I'd be attracted to them, and it'd be this way of how do I help them? How do I fix it? How do I hold the space to allow them to air all their dirty laundry. Like I was their counselor, pretty much. So it was like, it was a little bit of like them being codependent on me. And I wouldn't really share my life like that with them. I'm a very private processor in a way. So if I had something going on, I'd be like crying in my bed at like 3 a.m. Like rather than calling my friend at 3 a.m. So I had to, definitely learn boundaries. I think that's where the biggest lesson of boundaries has come from for me to instill boundaries is through friendships of my energy and like what's a healthy boundary. And do those people want to be friends with me more than just what I'm offering of healing? And even,
what do you have to offer in a friendship?
Well, and I was gonna say, even now, like I sometimes have to be careful because I'll have friends that be like, "What do you think, Dan? Like, what do you feel?" Like, that they're like they think they're privy to your intuitive information, right? And so it's like not that it's their fault; they just don't, know. So it's like this, this. I'm like, oh, I have to stop kind of giving away all of that energy, right? So, sorry, what was your question? Down the rabbit hole. What do I have to offer?
Yeah,
Is that
like
you
what
said?
would you, so if I think that a lot of times these things come up to highlight what is in ourselves, right? Like what we attract is there's a frequency within us or whatever languaging you want to use around it, right?
Yeah.
We often will naturally evolve or not evolve, but be attracted to or to people that are on a similar there's some sort of exchange there, right?
Yes.
And agreed. And I don't want to go too much into languaging that doesn't feel good to me, but there's an attraction based upon sometimes, like for me, it was like a deficit. And so then, there was that match, that plug of like, you need me? Great. Let me be needed.
Yes.
Right. Versus like, I really just needed myself in that one. Right. And so in friendships, so like, who are you?
Well, so
outside of your intuitive ability, who is Deanne in a friendship?
Well, intuition still comes up in there because my thought in all of that was I always wanted somebody that was like my guru, like my teacher, my mentor.
Right.
Somebody that I could ask all the questions to, whether it was intuitive or just a life question too. And don't get me wrong, like my parents have been great supporters, especially like my mom, I can, talk to her about anything. But I always was like, where's, when I realized that I just wasn't going to get it in this life. Like I repeatedly was like, no, Dan, you are your own mentor. Like, and I was like, okay, but it was, so I think maybe there was this piece of like, I can be that then for somebody. Like I was the mentor for that person. I was the teacher for that person. I was the like guide or leader or whatever for that person. So maybe giving out what I was kind of looking for, right? So when I recognized, oh no, it's just all within me, and kind of was cultivating that, then it kind of put up this boundary more now with people with friendships, it's more of this encouragement for them to find it in themselves. But it's like, I still have to be kind of careful because I can still attract those that need a little bit more than that. And so it's like, it's always a fine line because I love to be giving. I love to be there for people. And it's both ways. I still go to my friends and ask like, what's your opinion? What's your advice on this? Like it is natural, but there, you can tell there's a difference when that person's going to go home and like be responsible for their stuff. And same with me versus, going home and still feeling like you're holding their responsibility. Does that make sense? So, I don't know if that kind of answers your question. Meredith's like kind of looking at me like, is there more?
Yes, there's always more.
There's always more. Oh God, there's more. I think, and it's interesting because we did a session together on just ending that type of contract too with friendships. And that's really helped. And then as soon as I, did cultivate some of those boundaries, I had friends go like, where are you? What are you doing? Like, what's like, all of a sudden I changed the rules. Right. And it's so, moving forward, I've been a lot better with boundaries, but I would say some of my more bigger learnings through relationships and codependency, and things like that have been with friendships. Yeah. Because I don't feel, with Keith and I, it's so interesting. We've lived we've obviously made a family together. We've made a life together, but from the very beginning, we've always had our very own lives. Like I still feel it. We still have our own social agendas and work, and we come together and we are a great team and family at home, and people would be like, well, of course you love your wife. You don't ever like see her. You guys don't do anything together. And I'm like, well, that's bullshit. We do a lot together. And, you know, obviously we're together every night, but it's like, you're good. I'm good. Okay. Let's sometimes have our own time. And we're really good about knowing what we need individually as well as a family. So it's been like kind of easy.
What would it be like to take that frequency into your friendships?
I think I have. I think I've started to, and I can feel that difference. But when I talk about this growth, but it took me a long time. Like I would say, late 20s to figure that out.
Feels like a baby.
Yeah,
Totally.
but if you think about
Who knows
how
in their 20s, anything.
but you start
Come on.
cultivating friendships when you're in kindergarten,
Yeah.
right? So you think of how long you've held those codependency patterns, right? It's a lot of energy. So. And, now it's neat. I have a good friend who's, we're building a newer friendship. And she goes, I really look up to the boundaries you have around friendships. So she goes, I'm learning that. So now it's neat that if I'm holding that boundary, that now somebody can take that and be like, oh, that's a proper boundary.
Right.
I like that.
And so where they
Boundaries
still
are
feel
incredible.
me,
Boundaries are- yeah.
they still feel me. She's like, I feel like we're really connected and everything, but it's like really healthy.
Yeah.
So we're getting there.
I love that. What is it
not
like
perfect,
I mean, I think we can both all maybe chime in on this about the experience of starting to set those boundaries the first time and then what it feels like to live with a bit of boundaries.
Oh.
Oh.
Man, I was just talking
A lot of
about
mistakes.
that this week. Like
Be a lot of
this week,
mistakes.
I was just speaking about like, having like certain friendships that haven't made those boundaries in yet.
I know.
And then when like today there was, or not today, it wasn't today, it was this week when I had like an example of a friend who, I like made a boundary, like I set a verbal boundary, and then they like plowed over it anyways and kept speaking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, inside I was like, what do I do? What do I do?
Do you get angry?
I got angry.
I get angry, yeah.
And it usually it doesn't happen often because I think I've done it like I'm learning. But at this point, it was the first time I really got like super angry because I was like really clear with my boundary, like just energetically. And then when that was questioned, you feel funny today. I even set a verbal boundary and that person was like, no, like that's not what you do with like, I'm just going to plow over that and just go ahead and like share anyways, even though for me, it just wasn't the right timing. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? How do I really want to be here and support this person. And I care and I love, and I want to hear this, but this is just like, but they're also plowing over me right now and I don't know what to do. And I felt so, in that moment, I actually felt really helpless because I did the things and they didn't work. And I was like, how do I like reestablish them again?
Like, dear universe,
Yeah.
I said it.
I said it so many ways.
And it didn't work.
And if I say it again now, I felt like I was going to be hurtful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Well, then it's like you're on this fine line of being healthy and spiritual about it, and boundaries. What's spiritual about it? Then you're like, now you're just like a fucking bitch.
I know. I'm like, if I tell you to stop talking now, it feels like a slap in the face, and I don't
Yeah.
really want to slap you. So I'm like,
Do you guys ever like pull away? Because I'll sometimes just like, my old behavior would just be like, I just want to ghost this situation. Like, I'm like, I just want to pull away and like go dark. And then the friendship just sort of ends for some weird reason. Everyone's confused. I've stopped doing
dark.
that. But I used to do that. And now I've like stopped doing that. And now I'm just like, no, let's just like talk about it.
to me, like, quite honestly, like my friends know I'm not the best texter.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're a
You
little,
know this.
you're distant with texting. That's okay.
Like,
I
I've
know,
been
I
friends-
know that though, so I'm not offended.
Yeah. So like,
Yeah.
you and I have been friends for over like 10 years. It's our anniversary this month.
It is?
It is.
Oh yeah. February. Actually, the beginning of February
Yeah,
too.
we're-
Like probably
Look,
this
right
weekend.
now, like probably right now.
Probably right
We're
now.
having our 10-year anniversary.
Amazing.
Oh my God.
Love you.
Friendships.
Thanks for helping me to learn proper. I've never had weird boundaries with you, by the way. So
we've been
thank
good for
you.
10 years. Celebrating 10 years today. But in that 10 years, like, she knows I am not a good text phone person.
You feel a million miles away on text.
Oh, I am.
Yeah.
Like it's not my thing. And so I think that if there's like ends up being some sort of like space in a friendship, the other person kind of feels like, where did she go? Like but I'm like, I just don't text. Like so it ends up being like maybe like a ghosting situation, but I'm not trying to do that. Like that's not my intention at all. I just kind of like, I'm just that way with all people, even the ones I'm in healthy relationship with.
Yeah.
So sometimes that happens, but that's not what I'm intending for.
No, I never feel that. But I also, because I know that, I'm like, no, I'm not going to have like a whole how's your week on text with you. No. I'm just going to catch up when I see you.
Yeah.
And then I know we get what we need at that time.
That feels like flexible expectations too, based upon knowing somebody.
But it's
right?
also
versus like, do I have an expectation?
Though.
Yeah, expectation and acceptance of this is how this person is, and I know them, and so that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Versus, I need you to text me every day, and if you don't text me every day, then blah, blah, blah. Like that's fairly unhealthy.
Well, it was. I know I've had relationships like that, especially when I was a teenager. It was like if I was at school all day with my friends and you come home and then it's like, why didn't you answer my phone call? And I was like, we were together all day. Like what else? And then it was more phone calls that night.
Oh my
like,
gosh. Yeah.
Holy man.
How stressful phone calls.
See, I'm okay texting. I'm not a great phone call person. Like I'll be like, I don't feel like answering it. I'm kind of that person. And it's a lot of times I miss it because I actually keep my phone off because I hate talking on the phone unless I have to.
I prefer phone. I want to hear your voice. I would go like in person first, phone call second. No, in person first, a video phone call second, phone call after that, then a voice memo.
Wow.
Then last thing is text.
Voice memos are good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to hear the tone.
So wait, what was your question? I keep forgetting the questions. I don't know. I'm like, I'm here, but I'm like also like, where am I?
I know. Well, that's what happens when we get into sensitive stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like part of us is like, boop.
I know. I'm like I don't want to like,
Yeah, you're like, put your feet on the ground. Like, tell us what's like actually happening here. What's the energy of what's asking to be expressed, right? And all that. That's where the discomfort is.
Yeah.
Follow and sit into the discomfort.
Yes.
Then you can name that which is asking to be seen.
Death is very good at pointing out the uncomfortable parts of conversations and systems. Thank you.
It's so popular.
Do you guys want to share? I don't know if you guys want to
hang
share
out.
this because in this life that I can recall or remember, as far as I know, to my latest memories and abilities, I don't have sexual trauma in this life. Not to go into detail about your guys's, but can you talk a little bit about what modalities maybe helped you the most to work through those?
Yeah.
Would that be
Interesting
safe?
enough, like, of course, I'm a body talk practitioner, as you guys know. Maybe y'all don't know yet, but I am. Robin, did you know that? Yeah, Robin knew it, yeah. And so I also, of course, receive a lot of body talk sessions for myself through the 10 years of this modality. And oddly enough, it like would rarely show up. Like, so body talk is based on priority. Like you go for the session and then the practitioner like tunes into whatever the field is bringing up as a priority. You don't really come in with like much of an agenda. Like I want to work on this. And if you can, but it's like, it works best with priority. And it like, I was like, I've done like hundreds of sessions and this thing's just not showing up. So I was really curious about that too. Like where in my own system am I resisting this conversation, hiding it. And then honestly, it's like, for me, it's still working its way out. It's been more personal, like just kind of going into more somatic memories, going into like even some like more suppressed memories. And I've got quite a history of it because I'm learning suppressed memories too. So the span is really long. And so I think it's just a really, it's really big in my system. So
More layers.
More layers. And it's just curious that it hasn't shown up much in sessions for me. So I'm still kind of working through it. So I kind of do it with my conversations with friends and, and speaking about it more. I think just speaking about it, like I was able to like tell my one story and I would like choke up every single time I said it and probably do that for like years. And finally there was one day where I told my story and I never had a hiccup in the conversation. I was like, oh wow, I was able to say that full thing without having like a glitch in my voice. And so that was something that was really big for me.
And I would say too, layers, for those that are listening, when we say it's in layers, It can be the mental, emotional layers, the physical. So if you're doing, say, a stretching exercise or maybe a hip opening in yoga, and then the next day you're really irritated and agitated, and you could have released through your fascial tissue. So just for those listening, the layers can be in so many different ways in the body. Like you said, I emotionally was crying every time I talked about it, but then perhaps years later, if I was going to do something like, oh, I'm tight right there. Why is that? And then the memory might pop up.
Yeah.
Is that a good way to say that?
Yeah. I was actually at the hot springs on the weekend, and I did some work around the tightness of my fascia in the hot water, and had a friend just kind of hold space and help me out with some like hip release stuff.
Yeah.
So that was really helpful. So just kind of more like somatically in my actual tissues.
Yep.
It's been like my approach.
And maybe when you start to feel safe in just seeing, the memories or things and working through that, then the physical body can actually start to be seen and released, right? Okay. Mare, your turn.
Yeah, mine's totally different. And I just wanted to preface this that like this can be quite activating for people. So to resource yourself in this, our intention is to, my intention, and you obviously can say if it's shared or not, is to bring light into areas that we can hold on to for so long, that hold a lot of shame, that hold a lot of guilt, and that really tend to repress our creative ability and our ability to be present in our lives. And so by sharing these things, my hope is that it makes it a little bit easier for you to access into some of these things that you may relate to or may feel familiar. So my history was I had molestation as a child, and then my first sexual experience was a sexual assault. And so if you're asking how I work through it, it's current, right? It's definitely been, I just came into my body because of this like a year ago. Like I distinctly remember being like, holy crap, is this what a body is? And part of my response was to always have a bigger body, and a bigger body was safety, right? At literal distance. And so living in a society that is extremely fat phobic or like attacks bigger bodies, it's one of those things that it kind of like piles trauma on trauma on trauma. And so the narrative gets really, really mixed in between worth, value. If you just were, and then you really get into, for myself anyway, I really got into the if then. So if I lost weight, then I'll be able to have a healthy relationship. If I look different then, if this diet works then, right? And it was full of like, it ends up being really compacted with really harsh self-talk, a lot of self-judgment, and then a total incapacity to be able to actually share myself with somebody in any sort of like intimacy. And so sexual exploration and sexual healing for me has looked very unorthodox, and I love that it has, and it's continuing to unfold. But a lot of it was I didn't start tapping into it really until I started to say, the first time I was like, hey, you're going to be kinder to yourself. You're just going to go out and start online dating no matter what you look like. And so that was really interesting because surprise, surprise, people are attracted, right? And like, that was not a story I would have told myself, was that someone would be attracted to me. And so it was shocking when actually there was a lot of male attention. And you're like, oh shit, what? You mean like maybe something that I've been telling myself my whole life isn't true? And then like check out of that, because that's too much to handle in the moment. And so I was about like probably 8 years ago. That was like that first kind of experience into that. And then breath work was super helpful. I did a celibacy thing for a little while where I just started to work with what does sexual energy, how does pleasure work? Is pleasure outside of sexual intimacy possible? What is pleasure, right? How do you like, and so that is a whole exploration. So it was like, I think 6 months of a celibacy thing, which I was laughed because I was working with a mentor on it. They're like, you're going to go to celibacy. I was like, I'm not having sex. What am I celibate from, right? Like this is,
it's like, I'm not naturally doing this.
Yeah, I was like, I'm going to fucking nail this because.
Yes, I'm celibate also.
Because I'm there. Yeah.
It's like the easiest challenge ever.
Nailing it.
And then
Pun intended.
Yeah. then quickly realized that that's not what it was, right? It's actually an invitation to just really start to like, what is sexual energy in ourselves? What is pleasure? And like sitting with yourself, learning about your body. Like, my God, I was mad so much. I still get mad. I can feel my face flushing. I was like, we are taught nothing about our bodies, as women or even men. And I'm like, oh my God, why am I learning this at 38?
What did you learn?
Well, like there's, like the different kinds of orgasms and like how, like,
yeah, that's true.
There's so much that happens in there, and how like pleasure works, and like then if it's like shared with someone else, and that's like still in progress with that one. And then actually, ironically, part of this again is I joke about this, but every spring I go online dating. It's like I come out of the winter hibernation and I was like, for 3 months I shall grace my presence to the online community. And I am
in the springtime.
In the springtime. Yeah,
your liver's ready.
Yeah,
her liver's like organized.
Yeah, let's go. And I actually end up having a wonderful time because it's like literally
of course you would.
But I go and it's like the intention is like, show me what I need to like learn, show me how I can continue. And like
thought with that sword. Keep going. Anyways, I don't want to make light of it, but it's also like all these innuendos are coming up in my head. Keep going.
Go ahead. It's just Dirty D over there.
Dirty D. Gotta make a dirty joke like sometime in the day.
It's all good. Okay. But like I've learned things like I remember somebody that it showed me the first time what it felt like for someone to be super into you. I was like, oh, I didn't have to wonder about the messaging back. I didn't have to be like, where are they? What? As like they just did it. They just messaged all the time. They organized the dates. They showed up. I felt like what it was like to start to share intimate conversations. Like STDs are part of my sexual history as well because of the assault. And so sharing that has been like massive, right? Into being like trying to share and then immediately someone rejecting you because of a societal thing or all these various things. And so it's nuanced and layered. And so every time I go into this conversation, I used to like present it as an apology. And now it's just it's an is. And, but that was a whole journey in itself as well, a separate topic. But even in that, allowing, it's like that repetition of going through and each time recognizing that the difference was in me and it doesn't actually matter outside. And then every time you start to share or go into a deeper layer or do a little bit more, you create a different standard for yourself that then becomes like non-negotiable, right? So kindness is non-negotiable for me. Like basic respect is non-negotiable. These sort of things where before it would have been like, oh, he's just nice to me. This is good. And does he like me? Like, I guess I like him too, right? Like,
I like him because he likes me.
Yeah, I guess I could kind of like him.
Yeah, I love the way I look in his eyes. You know?
Yeah.
But like actually without being like, but what do you want?
We're the same person. We're the same person. Seriously.
And then now it's like fun things like dance and like there's like, like can you dance and can you start to embody yourself? And so that is very much like current. I can't speak to that in any other way of like that is part of this whole spectrum of healing. I've done some like womb classes with people held by some beautiful space holders and connected. And I think that's like to bring it back down to relationships, recognizing one of the hugest parts has been to start to share this story and realize like, I can't tell you how many times like I share it and so many people around are like, that happened to me too. Or that feels like something. And so part of me is like, what the hell is this shit? Why are we holding on to this shame or why are we holding on to this like dark secret? And I know why, but I think that part of the healing thing in relationships, and for this case, they have been both sexual and non-sexual, so friendship, is just that ability to start to embody and express and share something that I was holding on to for so long. And I'm excited. Like, I'm excited. It's still starting. Like, I'm still just part of this ongoing journey of what that means. And so, yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, online dating, tantra, celibacy. Breath work.
I'm taking all the notes.
Have you done any tantra work?
Yeah. I mean, tantra is so much. There's like, remember we did the Wild and Wise gathering on tantra? Were you there?
Yes, I was there.
Yeah. So, I do Wild and Wise gatherings, as you both know. But so that's just like events we had come together, and I had this topic. I'm like, oh, I really want to talk about tantra today.
I remember that.
And it wasn't so much about like like, oh, like we're talking about tantra. It's gonna be like a risque.
That's like a westernized version
Totally.
that's like bastardizing a really beautiful ancient lineage.
That's it. Ancient lineage from India. Thank you. Right. And so then I was like, no. Then I was like, no. So surprise, surprise. We're talking about like household tantra.
Oh, I love household tantra.
Yes. Yeah. Now it's all coming back to me.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
that's kind of
It's
like
all coming back to me now.
If you touch me like this.
If you hold
I had a
me
dream
like
that I was singing. Oh, someone asked me to sing on a mic, and this might be what is coming up. But I was like,
Yes.
no, I cannot sing. Anyways, I don't know why that's
Sing
triggering
it.
my dream last night. That
I
where I
love
was
it.
like, I had to sing Christmas fucking carols. Like I'm not a singer. That this is why
Maybe you
it's
need
coming up.
Celine.
Yeah. What?
well,
You need Celine.
singing into the mic is household tantra.
Is it?
Yes. It's anything that
I missed
like,
that lesson.
That
You know
one too.
why? It's like anything you do with like the ultimate pleasure. If it
Yeah.
brings you that pleasure and that ecstasy.
Are you
like,
feeling
in
pleasure and
that.
ecstasy singing into that
Yeah.
microphone right now, Dee?
I was feeling kinship because I was like, oh,
You're on the way.
all my girls are singing with me. Like a moment of friendship. Yeah. Bonding experience. So maybe
Name
a little
it, name it.
oxytocin. Yeah. Yeah. I guess I think like when I think tantra, I think, entangled with your partner in a crazy position, breathing to orgasm.
False.
Yes, you are so Western.
Am I very, okay. Yeah. So I guess when I think, I'm like, have you done that?
No.
Okay.
No,
Maybe
I
it's like a part of it, but like the household tantra is about the pleasure in all things. So it's the pleasure of the sensation of if you're having a shower and it's like the feeling of the water dripping over your body. It's
Washing
the-
the dishes.
You know
washing
what? I
dishes.
miss
It's like
that.
sensual. It's
Yeah.
like textual.
Because I'm
the
so
smell
busy.
of food.
Yeah.
Like it's stopping to be present in your everyday life and
Yeah.
seeing that there's all these like the beautiful snow falling right now. Can you sit and receive that? Right? Can you? And
But it's not supposed to feel
partnership.
sexual,
It can
though.
be, right?
Okay.
That's
right?
just
And
a small part of it.
I would say that's
Yeah.
missing. I think that could be like self foreplay,
yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
right?
Foreplay
Like
with
instead
life.
of being like foreplay as in, my spouse or partner, whoever has to, do these things to me to achieve intimacy. It's, taking, I guess, it back into your own senses. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's also separating that like pleasure and intimacy
Yeah.
and sexuality and shared sexual experiences are all separate like houses that you can study and start to spend some time with, and they can be intermingled and they can go together. So it can be a shared experience with a partner, it can be a shared experience with a friend, it can be by yourself, it can be with you in nature, it can be with you in your life. And so just understanding that it's this whole like plethora of options, and it's not just limited to maybe what we've been exposed to in terms of like pleasure and sexuality.
I'm missing that. I'm hearing that really loudly. I'm missing that.
Oh,
Like, I think because I'm not like in the moment, if I'm eating or something too, it's like I'm quickly eating. Like I think I'm never really fully present, but that could be my lifestyle. That could be with children in the house. It's like, well, when's the next break? Like quick, get it in or whatever. But I'm thinking, there's this book that I read years ago called Slow by Carl Honore, I want to say is how you pronounce the name. And I remember reading it and being like, everybody needs to read this. Like, this is like so full of wisdom. And it was this ability to slow down, to find or to enjoy every pocket. And it's so easy to miss it. And I think then my senses are, my physical senses I'm hearing are missing out, they said to me. And my intuitive senses are so full of zest and they get tired, so I rest them, but then my physical senses don't come online. It's almost like I'm not allowing them to come online.
Yeah, it's a big thing.
It's very interesting.
Side.
Yeah.
And that reminds me, like I'm feeling into even talking about codependence and interdependence with just things. Like,
Yeah.
am I
My
codependent
coffee?
with my coffee? Or am I like making love, if you want to say it that way, to my coffee,
there.
right? And having that sensual, like physical sensual experience with
Yeah.
my food, or am I just eating it? And it's like, then if I'm just, and I'm curious about the difference of eating your meal just to eat your meal and shove it down your mouth hole, or is it about like alivening it with that relationship?
Yeah.
Like if
Putting the energy into
if you're
it,
like
right?
in your physical senses are completely alive with your food, that just like if you think about tantra with like a partner, what's the difference between tantra with like the plate of food, and it alivens the energy and the prana of that, then you're in a relationship with that energy as well.
And your physical
Yeah.
body will support that. Like if you think about even just starting to sit down to a meal, the first thing that you would do is you smell it, right? You look at it, so you visually see the colors. You start to like take a peek at that. And this doesn't take a long, you can do this in like a minute or less.
Yep.
And then you start to smell it. And when as you see it and your brain recognizes it, and then as you start to smell it, it starts to release saliva, which will start to help break down, right? Your enzymes in your mouth will start to break down the food, which makes you, if you chew it a little bit slower, then it makes your stomach easier to absorb. Right away, you takes your body from like a sympathetic fight or flight into a parasympathetic rest and digest. So you're actually going to be able to receive the nutrition or the nutrients in that food more because of that intentionality with it. And then your body is also able to use those nutrients to support you more. And it's the same thing with relationships and friendships, I think, in that if you are present for this conversation or you sit down and you're intentionally there with someone, you're much more open to receiving that exchange, you know, and it can be sexual as well when you're more connected with your partner, your body. Like for women, my God, right? Like if you're present, things are different down there. Let me tell you, holy cow. Right? And so like allowing your body to be like, yeah, let's get in there and let's have this like different physical experience. It's all part of that, right? And that the physical body that's my like now my whole realm to learn for sure, which is really a beautiful homecoming.
Well, I'm so glad I asked about Tantra though.
Oh yeah.
And bridging it over, because I think that's going to be a little bit of my homework.
Well, the difference between like sensuality and sexuality.
Well, yes. And right? But just
like
coming into
sensuality.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where's the sensuality in the chakras? Because I know sexuality, like I'm like, oh, second chakra, sacral chakras. So I have so much like sex, money, power, right? But is sensuality there too?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pelvis.
I feel like it dances a little bit with the heart.
No, tell me more.
Well, you know, like in my body talk background too, they talk about our 7 main chakras having what's called sub-chakras in them. So within a chakra system, there's also the other 7 within it. So say if you have your base chakra, there's also base, sacral, solar, heart, throat, third eye, crown within. And so I look at like if I was to come into the second chakra, the sacral chakra, sexual chakra, I kind of feel that the heart wants to poke its head out, like the heart chakra within the sacral chakra kind of dances a little bit. That could just be for me personally though, like what is coming out is my heart being in it, my heart being present, so that my sacral can have maybe permission to do it. Is what I'm kind of hearing. So it's almost just like I just saw this little heart coming out and being like, ooh, can I dance and feel like a part of this? So,
And I think it's like, and then for me, if I think about that for myself, it's like not there, but it's actually my third eye. So I feel like in my third eye major chakra, my sub second.
Yeah.
So my sacral chakra within my third eye wants to come play. So it's like almost like a visual sensuality.
Yes.
I'm hearing right now so clearly. I just hear girls, 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 girls. It's the second chakra and all the chakras.
Exactly.
Like, so
yeah.
the sub-sacral is like, imagine it was the root, the sacral.
Yeah.
Like if all of that
That's
was lit up all the way, including the below, like then you're living. It has an accent for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's in every, and I think that's what Tantra is, that it actually lives in every center.
Yeah.
Can we call in Tantra right now? The spirit of Tantra. I feel like it's here. What would I have us know?
Oh, the spirit of Tantra is deeply excited about this frequency of interconnectedness. And this is even in the aspect of the chakras. Don't separate them. Like they all work together as this one thing, and they're all very deeply sensual.
But that's the same as also us saying we want to separate sexuality and sensuality.
Yeah.
We also want to separate between our masculine and our feminine self. It's all probably all the parallels, right?
It's kind of funny how we sometimes will separate to understand, right? Like we separate
have to,
integrate again, but that invitation to integrate it all, like I can feel it as this full body, like aliveness. Cause when you were saying what's in my heart, I could feel it in like my, my solar plexus being like the empowerment though. Like when you're empowered in your sexual energy, or when you're empowered in that sacral energy, like that's creativity and you're alive and like you can just literally ride life.
Well, and perhaps then too, it's like, then I know what my purpose is. in my sexual role.
And I mean, the purpose is to be alive, isn't it? Right? Is like,
Life? What do you think about that? Life?
I concur with death. I'm rubbing off.
Birth and death give full permission.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's like, even in that, I'm even like hearing that aspect of manifestation with the energy of Tantra. Like, even now as I'm manifesting my divine partner in my life, I'm using the energy of my senses and my subtle senses to kind of pull in with Tantra, like, what's this man gonna feel like? What's he gonna smell like? What's he gonna like? What's his laugh gonna sound like? And what's, all those aspects that are actually with the Tantra energy, because it's bringing in my sensuality with the energy of this person I don't even know yet, that I'm calling in. So it's really beautiful.
I love calling in from that way too. I had a really great astrology session the other day, and a partnership came up as well. So obviously we're talking about this.
Yeah.
And the question was like, well, what do you want in a partner? And like this, I pressure to like manifest what I want. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what is best for me. Like, let the universe show me what is best for me in this highest, right? And then I feel this need to just continue to work on myself to be able to like meet that when that's there. But I've used to have the list, and now it's much more. And I think we'd mentioned this a little bit before of how it feels. How do I want to feel in it? Is what I could speak to a lot more than what I actually want it to look like, because I feel like if I try to name it, it's like when you try to name something or say like, this is what I need, it's almost like you always undershoot, or you think you think that's, and the universe is like, I got so much more for you.
Or I'm gonna miss out. I'm gonna miss something if I don't
Yeah.
play down or something.
That's what you're gonna say, like, I want this or better.
Or better.
Yeah, this or better. Right, because there's always so much more in wisdom and more available. And I think that really, I can just feel nature coming in now, of being the inherent nature of Mother Nature, or the Gaia, is to be abundant. She makes 100 seeds where, you only need 1 or 2 to actually come. But like, there's just this excess all the time. So
I'm having a sensual
I see
experience
it
right now.
I see it. I feel.
But see,
isolated.
Pam and I are doing some like, ooh, how's your foot doing over there, Pam? Ignite my
You
attention.
can extend this into your friendships for sure.
Physical touch.
Physical touch is a big thing. But yeah, for anything really, you can use that aspect of senses and Tantra to call in healthy friendships and healthy work collaborations, manifesting whatever through your, like, how does my next job gonna feel that I'm trying to manifest, or my next home, what's it gonna feel like, other than just like making a blueprint? What's it gonna feel like?
Yeah.
What's it gonna smell like? What's the feel of the kitchen when you're in there?
And I think that becomes more and more available to us as we delayer and as we go through, because I think in the beginning, a lot of what I thought I wanted was just to not feel like this. Like I don't know what I
Anything but
want,
this,
but
yeah.
anything but this. I just don't want to feel like this anymore. And that's a beautiful stepping off point. I think sometimes it can feel overwhelming to be like, I just don't want to be like this anymore. This is too hard. This is too heavy. And if you're saying that to yourself, it's a beautiful stepping off point to be like, great, then what else is out there? What can I start? And then I believe that when you open your possibility of saying like, this no more, like I can't do this anymore, I don't know what, show me, then that's when things start to come through, right? Like you start to meet friends, you start to meet teachers, you start to meet experiences that will really help you begin to step into that a lot more. And you just so you know, it won't look like what you think it will.
Right. Question for Robin. What's the man's viewpoint on sensuality? I mean, for you to speak for all men.
No pressure.
To me, everything is cascade right from soul, mind, and body, and physical interaction. It's the final extension of this first. So the connection with the soul and the mind needs to come first, otherwise the physical connection is soulless and empty, right? So to me, it is as important to connect and have like, how do you say it? Like soul sex, I'm gonna call, which is to me like deep conversation on mushrooms, by example. It's something that like I enjoy as much as being physical with someone. And I'd rather masturbate than have sex with someone I don't
There's no
admire
connection.
or know. It's just a waste of time, energy, and then we all know the chords with all that stuff that can then stay on you. So yeah, to me it's an extension, it's a finality, and it's something that you can really go to the full potential and honor what it actually is only when you cascade it from resonated with the soul and then resonated with the mind, and then finally this is where you are safe to really go deep into the physical. And it's like it's next level if you go all that, and otherwise it's just like it is just to me a waste of time and energy.
Thanks, Robin. And that's a very tantric expression for sure. Thanks.
Very cool.
I love that. I feel so healthy.
I like the I can identify that too with needing that connection with somebody for safety of more sharing that physical experience with somebody. It's just always been there so that, you know, the conversations, that connection from that soul place, that there's trust or safety there. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only way or that's the right way, but I identify when you were talking about that from soul to kind of intellect a little bit and into that last physical perspective. So yeah, thank you.
I'm having a remembrance of I and Pam did a session together one time when we were like prostitutes.
Oh, yes.
And I'm just having that energy come through as we're like this. Like we were, I don't know, I think we were like Roman Empire or something or whatever. This is memory.
We're talking
It's
past
like right
life
now
people.
I was just like, but don't underestimate the power of just like good sex. You know, like sometimes I was like, I don't want to know that he's got a...
We had this like
That's okay.
Yeah, so
We
just...
had a really vivid memory of us two walking around like somewhere in Europe.
Yeah.
With these like really like those like big dresses.
I am getting a vision too.
Oh yeah, and we were like really powerful like, in our witchery, also that life, but we were in play that life fully. Like we had all this magic, but we didn't really care. We were there just to like honestly fuck around,
enjoy.
enjoy.
Yeah.
It was a ton of fun and a
found
lot
out.
of like booze and lace and men and
Red velvet.
Red velvet. that was that lifetime. It was awesome.
Maybe
So
a
sometimes
garter.
that can be healing too.
Yeah,
You know, like,
well,
you know?
totally. It's whatever, you know, whatever in this life that you are acquiring, because perhaps you've experienced something on the other spectrum in
Yeah,
another
we
life.
sure
So then
did.
this life, it could be an acquiring of something different because it's the observation, right?
Yeah.
So
Don't
yeah,
limit
for this
me.
life, it's been like that for me. But it's because I have a memory too of
Yeah.
being a little bit more sexually open to all, if
Yeah.
you will.
Nice. If you will.
And
Were you a man or a woman in that lifetime?
I was a man.
Yeah.
I was a gay man actually
Nice.
in that life. And yeah, I really. And I think I've dreamt of him, that being in that body a lot when I was younger, especially like, I remember I would be in this dream and I'd be like, oh, that's what it's like to have a penis. Like I knew because I could feel it. It was like, oh, there's my body as a male. And then when I tap into that dream, that memory, it feels a lot like that. Like that lifetime, that energy, that character, if you will. It's really fascinating. And I'm like, yeah, you've done that. Like you've had a life where you did that. So it's all good.
I'm getting this like energy of like, I feel like I've had a lot of like studious, serious lives where I'm like, I'm focused. I'm
Yeah.
like learning about like what is the answer to life all the time, many, many lifetimes of like philosophy and getting deep into those things. And I feel like that life that we're talking about from Meredith, she comes into my soul. She's like, listen, girl, enough studying. We're going to have some fun.
Yeah.
Put the books down. Let's go. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like,
Twist
whoa,
my arm.
that was a great time.
Yeah, that sounds
Get back,
like me.
now back to the books.
Yeah. That sounds like me for sure. Because they'd meet her, I'm like, don't limit me. Don't limit where I might find the, you know, and I think it comes back to intention. You know, what's your intention? Like, are you
Yeah.
seeking this relationship or seeking this exchange out of a deficit? Or are you seeking
Right.
it from a place of, like, this is an experience that I'm going into with, like, I'm present in the experience.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that, like, that doesn't have value. Do you know what I
No,
mean? Like, because
totally.
I think about all the random dates I've been on and how valuable they've been.
Yeah.
And there was, some of them were more of a soul connection. Some of them were more of a friendship. Some of them were just like sexual exploration. And so it's like, I loved all of it. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And so that permission to, like, all of it was healing.
Play with all of it.
All of
yeah.
it was
that's
healing
the
for
vibration
me.
area. So you're not gonna, like, as Rob was talking about, like cords or these unhealthy things. It's you're in pleasure. You're in high vibration in these experiences. You're not
Yeah.
you're not in like just a sexual exploration experience in
Or
like,
like you
in
said,
an
a
energy of like a
deficit.
low in that deficit or in that low vibe. So of course it's going to be for you a serving container.
Yeah, absolutely. And just practicing saying what I wanted or that something wasn't working for me. And I'm not saying it anyway, like they weren't all good dates. Like it's there, you learn, I believe like you learn from all, right? And so learning from the things that didn't work were just as valuable as learning from the things they did, because it gave me that lived felt experience. And that lived felt experience is something that I can work with.
Yeah.
Versus being up in my head, which is
And I'm
historic.
hearing what's I just important to, I don't know why, but I'm hearing this, is that even when, maybe a sexual experience with a new individual comes first, if you are in a healthy spot and not in this deficit, say that can lead to a very still healthy relationship. Like there's also the stigma that if like sex comes first with a partner, before say the soul connection or friendship or all those things, that it's like the wrong order.
Yeah.
If you will, but if like you are, exploring and you're good and you're meeting that person and perhaps that person isn't even in a deficit and sex comes first, like there's still ample opportunity to lend from that place unfold into relationship or friendship or whatever.
Yeah.
So it doesn't,
Upgrading those one night stands into a whole nother level.
well, that's
like
what
it.
I mean.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be. So I think it just depends, again, how well you do know yourself, your energy, where you're currently at when you're doing that exchange, and then it's fine.
Beautiful.
It's just fine, okay?
Fine.
It's fine, everybody.
all about the vibe.
It's all
Yeah,
about the
zero
vibe.
stigma.
All about the vibe.
Yeah, it's
all
just,
about the vibes.
Yeah, just
Even
breaking
a
down. They
deficit
said that
can
we
be
should
like-
say that.
Yeah. I almost want to like change deficit, even I said it, to just being like a place of like delayering or like moving through something.
Yeah,
right?
or not
Like,
available,
or
but
want.
you pretend that you're available,
Yeah.
or that energy is there, but it's actually not flowing.
All
or it's not there.
lies.
Yes,
Don't lie. Just
the
be high
ego
vibe.
maybe overtaking. Yeah,
Beautiful.
All the
Sweet,
things.
that was a great conversation. Thanks
Yeah.
for indulging me in my need
Feels
today.
good. I'm all fired up.
You know what? I was like,
Nope.
when I was channeling in, it just said unknown. I was like, Kate, it's not me. I'm not picking the agenda today.
Well, that's why I wrote pink and wore my rose quartz
Yeah.
ring, because I just
She
wanted to
knew
talk
it.
about relationship.
Beautiful. Thank you
I
for
loved
bringing
it.
that up.
Thank you, ladies, for being vulnerable.
Yeah, always.
And there was
In
more
your
to come
past,
there.
your
I knew I was
history.
kind of like crossing my legs on that conversation a little bit and not wanting to totally.
We'll get
explain,
there.
I saw your
but we'll
one
get
like
there.
kind of doing a little
I
like
know.
releasing of energy too, but
It'll come. I'll
This
share
will be
that
the
one day.
first of many of these
Yeah.
conversations around these topics, I think, because it's so relevant
Yeah.
for all
oh,
of us.
absolutely.
All right. Thank you so
All right,
much.
thank you for watching and listening.
Peace
Until next
and-
episode.
It's been the Three Fates.
3 Fates.
Have a
Love you
beautiful
all.
day.